This is Robert Harper with Virginia Farm Bureau's Grain Division. Thankful today, glad again to bring you the Merchandiser Minutes. A beautiful Friday, May the 9th, 2025 with a full week of trade behind us. Let's take a look at how the futures for corn, Chicago wheat, and beans went this week. July corn down 20 cents for the week to close at $4.49 a bushel. December corn down 8 cents for the week to close at $4.42 a bushel. If we take a minute right here, we'll talk about this some with soybeans, but see this inversion that's developed in here from the old crop contract of July to the new crop contract of December. $4.49 on the old crop, $4.42 on the new crop. This is strange. I think we're all scratching our heads a little bit. Here we are in the middle of planting for the world's largest corn producer here in the United States. We know we have tight supplies in much of this country. Our domestic use and export put together have tightened the corn supplies. We see that on our old crop balance sheets, and we see new demand coming even this week, flash sales this week for corn and for soybeans both. But we see this inversion building in here as new demand is surfacing with these low prices. We know that futures markets are oversold. We know they're preparing for the May WASDE report that we'll get on Monday, but we still see this inverted market in both corn and beans, and especially in corn where the fundamentals look so positive for price really to be up around $5 on that old crop contract. When we look at the stocks to use ratio as low as it is, when we look at the type of demand we have, again, domestic demand and export, but we got to remember we do have corn crops that are being made in Argentina and in Brazil, and that's weighing on the markets as well. And we also have had another week of extremely fast planting pace here in the United States. So with the new crop, these spreads that are working in here are just really interesting, and keep your mind on that. Now let's keep our mind on it here as we look at soybeans. July soybeans down 7 cents for the week to close at $10.51. November beans, your new crop contract, down really almost a penny, or you could just say zero this week, traded all week and closed within a penny of where it opened at $10.30. So July beans, $10.51. November beans, $10.30. And again, that inversion is there as prices are higher in the nearby months, and that's letting bushels move out of producers' hands and trying to get them to the market here as the market is figuring out old crop price versus new crop price. New contract lows this week in Chicago wheat. The wheat crop we saw again this week in the crop progress report on Monday. The U.S. wheat crop looks really good. We know that too that the spring wheat in the northern plains is getting planted fast, 44 cent complete. And again, oversold. We've seen it. The speculators are adding to their short position in wheat, and they are getting out of their long position in corn. That was kind of a theme for the week. July wheat down a big 22 cents to close at $5.21 a bushel, a new contract low. September wheat down 20 cents for the week to close at a new contract low of $5.36. Now let's start off here talking a little bit about some outside influences. I'll just breeze through these as you're driving or in the tractor or thinking about what's influencing your futures price this week from the outside perspective. The Canadian Prime Minister, he's new. He did come to the White House this week and said a whole lot of things, but one of the things that stuck out the most to most of us is that Canada will not be a 51st state to the United States. So just keep your eye on this relationship with our wonderful neighbor to the north. We saw the Dow trade up and down all week, but it's looking like it's going to close here this afternoon. The futures index just about where it opened at, just above 41,000. And that's a big win in a week like this where everything is so uncertain. We saw back on April the 22nd, gold hit the all-time high, $3,509 an ounce. It's been up and down since then, but today it closed at $3,344 an ounce. We know why that's important to us. We know funds control a lot of money, speculative funds, and they've been buying gold up about 30% here this calendar year. It's hard to even say that, but it's a safe haven investment, as we know. A lot of up and down on the dollar futures this week, really closing out the week at parity at 100 on the futures index. With a big bounce this week when we got word that China and the United States are going to sit down for talks this weekend. And y'all, this is more than a big deal. It was a lot of optimism when that came out this week. You could see even how the dollar futures reacted to that. But again, our trade reps, their trade reps meeting in a neutral location this weekend in Switzerland. And we even had hints just here this afternoon from President Trump making comments, hints that he's willing to lower the tariffs down to 80%. We'll see, y'all. We know Saturday and Sunday is not a quiet news cycle with this administration or the world we're living in anymore, and we might see not a deal done this weekend, but these are icebreaker talks, beginning talks for trade between the U.S. and China. But we really might see some big announcement come out this weekend, and that could really impact the futures trade to the upside, especially for soybeans and its derivatives, meal and oil, come Sunday night when the board opens at 8. We also saw this week outside influences. The United States and the United Kingdom announced a big trade deal and really pulled out, and specific in that was increased access to the UK for United States beef and United States ethanol. I think we as a nation export about 15% or so, something like that. That's close of the ethanol we produce. A lot of it goes to Canada, but it's great to see more going to the UK. So the Trump administration was hailing this week as a big deal, new trade deal between the USA and the United Kingdom. We also saw the Federal Reserve meet this week. Chairman Jerome Powell made comments, quote, rising risk in the economy, quote, uncertain outlook. He left, and the Board of Governors there with the Federal Reserve left the benchmark interest rate the same, didn't raise it, didn't lower it, 4.25% to 4.5%. Let's jump into some fundamental influences here. Commitment of Traders report coming out last Friday. We'll get another one this afternoon. We just saw big liquidation. I spoke about that last week here on this video. The corn speculators selling futures contracts and offsetting them to ones that they had previously bought, initiated a position on the board by buying a contract. They're long. They've been selling them. If we go back to February the 19th, we've seen July corn futures fall 70 cents since February the 19th. And I want to make sure we all know that on that day, the managed money speculator had 332,000 corn futures contracts they were long. Last Friday, they were along 71,000. So look at that liquidation, getting out of the bought contracts. And remember, you and I have spoke about it over the phone. We've talked about it here. It's very peculiar for the speculator to be long corn futures, optimistic that the price is going higher, to be long corn futures when the U.S. is planting. And we saw the big sell-off this week on Monday for corn. They were getting out of more contracts, and you'll see that reflected in today's Commitment of Traders report. So 71,000 contracts long corn coming into this week, 38,000 long bean coming into this week, and 121,000 short wheat. So we're pushing a record short position on the wheat futures for Chicago. Record short added to it this week. Lower contract lows on wheat futures, and that was the theme. Sell wheat, grow that short position this week, and sell corn and get out of that long position. Virginia corn, fundamentally, we got some good numbers, 62% planted coming into the week. 5-year average, 67%. Y'all are catching up fast, and I think Monday we'll see that we're ahead of schedule here in Virginia planting corn. Virginia beans, 30% planted, way ahead of the 5-year average at 18%. U.S. corn, 40% planted, 5-year average 39%. U.S. beans, 30% planted, 5-year average 23%. Another headwind, an anchor holding back corn and bean futures contracts from upside movement is the fast planting pace and good weather across much of the production states. We'll see what happens next week. Couple of reports this week from different analytic firms within the Russian government and outside showing that their wheat crop estimates say it's growing in size. And we did see some different analytic firms this week who watch what Argentina's production does raise their bean crop estimate as well. Important. Some more fundamentals here. We know the dry season, we're looking at the calendar, the dry season is starting in Brazil, but we know that a lot of their double crop corn has pollinated already, and there's a lot of acres that people down there on the ground who write about it and talk about it on podcasts tell us one more rain will finish it. We know it's a good-looking corn crop, double crop safrinha corn crop in Brazil at this time, and again, that's a headwind and an anchor on your futures price as well. We saw this week that China resumed buying Brazilian beans from 5 firms that it had restricted purchases from due to sanitary concerns. They got that worked out. They're buying them again from those 5 Brazilian firms. But we also know that April was the lowest in 10 years on imported beans into China due to those companies they weren't buying from and due to some custom delays. It's put their crush industry there in China in a bind, but they're going to work hard to catch up. Remember, China likes to buy raw beans and make meal and oil out of them themselves. The ethanol report, very interesting. A lot of good here. We did see it was a friendly report. There were some disappointing numbers in there for blender demand, but what really caught our attention, everybody who's watching it, is that March exports for ethanol were up 23%. From March a year ago, 196 million gallons exported. And when you look at the actual week-on-week numbers in the ethanol report, production down 2%, still just above 1 million barrels per day. Stocks down 0.8% at 25.1 million barrels. I want to finish up here with a little bit about how strong corn demand is. When the prices get this low, on the futures, we know we can pick up some new demand, and that's again been interesting to watch that and watch the inversion on the futures board. But we did have flash sales this week for corn and beans. That'll show up on next week export sales report on Thursday, every Thursday, 9 a.m. But just this week's report, wheat, 2.6 million bushels. That didn't get anybody's attention or just move the markets any, but just a phenomenal number on corn, 65 million bushels sold in 1 week. Top customer, Japan. Beans, 13 million bushels. That's decent for this time of year when most folks are going to Brazil. As we know, Mexico was the top customer for U.S. beans. It's just remarkable to see corn struggle this week like it has when we have these kinds of flash sales and this type of demand. But remember, money flow, y'all. We've been talking about it for years. The funds will move money when they want to, where they want to. It does not have to have a fundamental reason behind it. So it's just amazing to see the demand for corn and that the futures markets are liquidating. But remember, Monday's a huge day. I'm going to finish up with this. The WASDE report, crop report, May, comes out at noon on Monday, May the 12th. Will the USDA, NAS, will they adjust corn exports? Remember, the big deal about the May crop report is that we get the first look at the 2025-2026 balance sheets. Now, this is a look 18 months out into the future. It might not be that accurate. Nobody can predict the future, but it's a look. It gives us something to trade off of, and we're gonna pay attention. Ending stocks here in the U.S. We're gonna pay attention. New South American production numbers. We're gonna get the first look at U.S. 2025 wheat production and the first look at the corn and soybean balance sheet. So we got to be ready for some fireworks Sunday night at the Open at 8 p.m. if we get some big announcement out of this China-U.S. trade talks in Switzerland. And then we're going to be ready at noon on Monday when this crop report comes out to see if we can help you with making any old or new crop sales. Congratulations. You got a lot of good work done this week. You're going to do even more and be more efficient. I know you will next week. This is Robert at Farm Bureau. Give Josie or I a call if we can help you. Thank you.